Hello, hello. Here we are again, and this time it's a special, or rather, in its own way, a special broadcast or podcast, because there won't be any guests. Essentially, it'll just be me talking. I'll be introducing you to a different way of thinking, one that I've been practicing for years and living my everyday life by. Recently, I had a really great little chat. I'm sorry I didn't record it. A lovely conversation with a Hungarian lad living in Denmark. Unfortunately, I can't mention his name, but I can share that he said something truly beautiful. He actually has some money put aside, but not so much that he wouldn't know what to do with it. I would like to take this opportunity to express my most sincere and heartfelt gratitude to you for everything you have done. It really is incredibly kind of you to go so far out of your way to assist me with this matter, and I honestly cannot thank you enough for your time, your patience, and your invaluable support throughout this entire process. Your help has made a world of difference, and I am truly grateful for your exceptional generosity and thoughtfulness. Cheers for that, it is much appreciated. There were loads of things. Questions related to psychology, despite the fact that it was only our first conversation, and it already became clear that she was a bit further ahead mentally than most people. In any case, I wanted to touch on this topic a little about how, in your mind, you should place this way of thinking, how you should live it in your everyday life. Your life. And the most important starting point in this topic, in order to move forward, or in anything else in which you want to achieve success, but now let's talk about wealth or material well being, is that it's very important not to make it dependent on something. Fame, connections, where you were born, or where you start from, etc. None of this matters. Out of these, believe me, none of it matters to me either. So it really doesn't matter what you do now or how you live your life, because everything, absolutely everything about your future will be decided in your mind. And you can do it wherever you are now. The only thing that matters is how you make the most of your current circumstances. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's stick to the mindset for now. First and foremost, accept this. Don't make excuses. So don't let your circumstances, but take responsibility. It's your responsibility. Everything that happens to you in life, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter if someone won't leave you alone, or if you can't do something because of that, or however your life has turned out, you are the cause of it. And that's that. Don't look for any external factors as an excuse. Once you've got that, then make yourself aware that wealth is a tremendous journey. So it's not an event like winning the lottery or just getting promoted out of the blue. In fact, it's not a linear process, but rather a process that grows exponentially. Why? Because the energy you put in at the beginning, the system you start to build, so you need to think in terms of systems, the system you start to build will slowly begin to bear fruit. And then there really will be a point that changes things, where you cross over the tipping point, or you'll have that aha moment. And from then on, things might start to speed up and you'll find yourself in a much better position. From that point onwards, that's when the results will start coming in. So I'd describe it like this: the first few years, whether that's one, two, three, four, five, or six, it really depends on the individual. So it'll be different for everyone. It depends on how you go about it, how much time you put in, how much energy and sacrifice you're willing to make. Here, you learn. You have to really put the effort in, consistently putting in the work, and later on, you'll have to own these things. So, this will be your responsibility, both to yourself and to life. And then, all of a sudden, things will start to improve. Again, I'm saying this doesn't happen overnight, it's a slow, gradual process. However, when you do something this slowly and you start to feel things getting better, suddenly it's no longer something you're forcing yourself to do, to live and think this way, but it becomes part of your daily routine. So all of a sudden, everything gets better. You reach the financial level you desire, you achieve the freedom you long for, and you can say that you're a successful. By the way, the word success means something different to everyone. For some, success really does mean freedom. For others, it's material. For some, it's linked to money. For others, it's about owning a Lamborghini. Who knows, really? Everyone is different, and we each have our own individuality. But you have to get there. And right now, I'm going to help you with exactly how to start out on this path. So, the tools you need for your journey are the most important factors because you have to be selective about what you take with you. Since this is a planned journey, you'll have the tools you've chosen in advance, deciding which ones you'll use along the way. It's like preparing for a hike, and every bag you can pack, and you can choose what you put into this bag. This will be the second point I want to talk about: which tools you choose. It's very important because certain things will hold you back on your journey, while others will help you move forward. Some things can even multiply your energy, your invested money, or your time. This will probably be the subject of a separate video with concrete examples, I think, to show you these. So I don't want to waste time on this now. And anyway, I don't want this to be a video that goes on for hours. So the difference between the two categories of tools is that one is just an illusion. It creates the illusion of wealth, for example, when someone buys a car they can't actually afford, or buys some electronic gadget, say a 4K projector or an 85-inch TV with a super high-end home cinema system. Things you can't actually afford, right? And let's say you buy them on credit or with monthly installments. By doing this, you create a fake standard of living around yourself. You've got the flat, you've got the car, you've got everything, but in reality, none of it is actually yours. But it's there, after all. That's what you're sitting in, so to speak. So you create these things, you have a certain standard of living, but you'll end up becoming a slave to it because you've done something that you actually couldn't afford. It's much better to realize this beforehand and to hold yourself back before you make these poor decisions. But if, let's say, you've already taken such a step or you've already made these choices, so you're sitting right there in that very chair I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with that either. You can still change or improve and work on this. So nothing is actually lost yet. And this is where I'd like to circle back to one of my very old favourite books. I'm sure many of you will recognize the name Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote it, I think, and now I'm not quite sure which of his books it was in, whether it was in Rich Dad, Poor Dad or another one. But he spent a lot of time on this as well, and he categorized them, saying there are good debts and bad debts. Now, I deliberately started with bad debt because these are luxury items. These will not improve your financial well being in any way. Unless, of course, you incorporate them into a business or use them for work, but that's a different matter entirely. Another conversation altogether. So for now, let's not categorize and subcategorize for now. Let's just stick to the two main types. One is good debt, the other is bad debt. And as I said, I started with the bad one. Generally speaking, this would include, for example, a car that you drive yourself, not one you use for work, rent out, or anything like that. So, not a car for your business or for your employees, but a car you use for your own personal everyday life. That's an example of this. The other is the flat or house you live in. So, I'm not talking about investment property, not about commercial property, nothing like that. Just a straightforward, classic property, whether it's a flat, a house, or anything of the sort. This, again, is considered bad debt because what is truly remarkable is that absolutely everyone seems to completely fail to realize that this process is slowly but surely taking your hard earned money away from you, acting as a constant and invisible drain on your personal financial resources without you even noticing it happening in your daily life. Whether it's a car, a motorbike, or a tractor, it really doesn't matter. So I've really gone off on a tangent, but I'll try to bring the conversation back. So there are never any excuses. That's the most important thing. The very first rule, no excuses, take responsibility. That's what matters. Another category of tools is those you use to build yourself. You build your life, you essentially build your wealth. And to talk a bit about wealth as well, I'll touch on this again what wealth is, what being rich means, because believe me, it's the stuff. So it's not the Gucci shirt, not the suit, not the ridiculously expensive sports car, not the holiday in Dubai that's paid for on credit, and not that 3 story, 8 hectare house you see on most Instagram pages. So that's not wealth. I'd break it down into three factors. One of them is freedom, so that you are free. You act as you wish, as want, not someone else telling you. You're not stuck in a hamster wheel, not bored, not with your head down, and not cursing the day every morning because you've woken up again and have to go to work. Or if you don't have a job, then you do what you want to do. The second is health, so being healthy. And the third, coming back to this by the way, there's really not much to elaborate on when it comes to health. Everyone knows what I mean. And the third is your personal relationships. That too is a kind of wealth. So, whether these personal relationships are properly built, your family, your partner, your friends, and you are happy in this. Perhaps these are the three factors, if you have them. And by the way, money plays a big role in this. So, in reality, of course, you need money for wealth as well. For example, with money, you can buy yourself time so you can be free, your freedom, and also healthy food, healthy ingredients if you like to cook for yourself. And in fact, even mental health can be traced back to money. So if you have money, you can buy yourself freedom. And through that freedom, your mental health is likely to be in order as well. Or even your relationship could improve if you go on a big trip together and collect experiences, memories. Not to mention, if your shared future becomes more serious and you might want to have a child of your own, then again, you have to turn to money because having a child can be extremely expensive if you don't do it right. So, I'm not saying that wealth isn't about money at all, but just think about these three things. Wealth is realized in the unity of these three, at the center, in that certain balance. In fact, it's worth to call this wealth because if we tie wealth to possessions, to cars, houses, or various branded clothes, unfortunately, we get lost in this and end up chasing an illusion. And these poor decisions can lead to bondage in your life. Generally, people can't actually afford these things, so they end up constantly chasing after them, trying to maintain these items, essentially pursuing these objects, and they will end up slipping through life. So just think about who is actually wealthier. Let's look at an example A and an example B. So, in example A, every weekday morning they spend an hour stuck in traffic going to work, and from about 7 in the morning until, say, 5, 6, or even 7 in the evening, they don't even see their family. After a whole day at work, where I could use the cliche that they're doing something they don't like and hate it, but let's say they actually quite like it or have grown to like it over the years because they've had to adapt. So let's say they feel good about themselves, and for all this, they receive, I don't know, about 1.5 million forints a month. They live well with their family, buy things on credit, they're getting by, and even the repayments aren't a problem with this amount of money. Let's look at a B example. Let's say a small business owner who takes on one or two projects every month earns about 300,000 forints from it after deducting expenses and, let's say, tax, and from this, they manage just fine. They're getting on just fine because in reality, they don't really do much. They have no debts, no car to maintain. They're happy using public transport. They don't buy phones on credit. They're content with an iPhone or Samsung that's a couple of generations old. It doesn't matter which. And they structure their life so that they live consciously day to day. So, what do their weekdays look like? What do you think? Well, they literally get up whenever they want. Now, I'm not saying they're a lazy person. And and they don't even get up before 4 in the afternoon. But pay attention to what I said. They get up whenever they want, and that could be 6 in the morning or even 5. It's entirely up to them. And if they feel like it, they'll have a siesta from noon till 2 because they get up early. So they're not restricted as to when they have to get up. They're not forced into spending 8 to 10 hours a day somewhere. If on that day they feel like going for a walk or working out to be healthier, then they can do that. So I think this is a very, very important example where you can really see who is actually wealthy and who isn't. Or it's a matter of perspective whether they feel wealthy or not. Because it's not necessarily the wealthy person who has more money or who earns more or who has more branded stuff. Not at all. But rather the person who works in Thailand and, let's say, works hard all day, and obviously they don't live in wealthy circumstances, but they can still spend more than half of their day with their family. Well, that person is much more balanced than, say, here in our Western society, where people are slogging away all day in this rat race and they can't get out of it, and they only get home in time to say goodnight to their child because they haven't had any time all day. And now I could mention their working hours, I could mention the traffic jams, the time spent in the car just to get to work and back home, and if they even have a social life, God forbid, then going out, meeting friends, if they manage to fit it in. And if they didn't, then maybe, just maybe, there might be some time left for that certain family as well. In the fourth point, this is exactly what I'd like to talk about, this so called rat race, this economic modern slavery we're in, and whether, in reality, being rich or successful earns or wants to be someone, then their first goal should be to get out of this rat race. This can be achieved by creating for yourself the means to cover your monthly expenses, or rather, by ensuring you have what you need to cover those monthly outgoings, whether you earn it or already have it, and you're no longer dependent on money. You're not reliant on others to control your life, but you can take full control yourself. If you step out of this rat race, which is, of course, typical of being an employee. If someone works at a job, they tend to live from month to month. If there's a bit of extra money, it usually goes on a holiday during the year, and if there isn't, then unfortunately, not even that's possible. There are levels to this, though. The first level is to have a proper reserve, to put aside enough money to cover your monthly expenses for, say, half a year. If you have a 6 month reserve, then believe me, you're a freer person. Your mentality will already start to change. You'll handle everything a bit more relaxed, even just in your head. Based on what I've just said, that these things don't actually represent wealth, but rather prosperity, please think about what your life is like. What do you have in your life right now? What are you currently spending your money on? Maybe you only have a small amount of money. Maybe you're working as an employee and there's barely anything left at the end of the month, then please think about what you're actually spending your money on, because there's a very deceptive false image. This is called instant gratification, or at least that's what it's called. It's actually quite hard to translate this quickly from English to Hungarian, but that's the term. It's a pretty nasty thing because it can really fool people. So, in the short term, you get satisfaction from that little bag of crisps, or with that little bit of chocolate, or with that Big Mac, or you go out partying because nothing else matters right now and you feel on top of the world, or you buy that bottle of, I don't know, Johnny Walker and you and your mates polish it off. So you need to be mindful not to let these things creep into your life because if you look at it, if this becomes a regular part of your life, then for example with crisps and chocolates, it can lead to pain in the long run, not to mention that alcohol. And why does it lead to pain? Because you put on weight or you won't be as healthy. And every little thing that gives you momentary satisfaction does two very harmful things. One is that it takes away your time, which is actually the most valuable thing, and it takes that from you because that's what you were doing at the time. And it takes your time because in the long run, it holds you back. Or maybe I'm not putting it quite right. So, in the long run, it will definitely hold you back because this little momentary satisfaction takes away your time. But if it becomes a habit, then again, you'll pay a very heavy price for it with your time. The second thing is that it takes your money. And for those who, for example, trade their time for money, typically employees, those people fall into a double trap. Because let's say they sell 8 hours a day for a certain amount. Of course, every hourly wage is different, everyone's daily wage is different, and so on and so forth. And that certain amount is spent on things that provide momentary satisfaction, but really, in the worst case, is just a little treat on the way home. And this can be a very, very, very bad trap, so you need to get out of it. Please think about your own life in light of what you've just heard. These changes in mindset are the most important factors in setting off on a new path, because if you have the basics in place, to which you stick, and you can use these principles to constantly test the circumstances of your life within yourself, whether this is the right path or that is the right path, what should I do, how should I set me goals, then you will move forward in the direction you want, rather than running round in circles like someone stuck in that so called hamster wheel. Another very important factor is to organize your expenses and your finances, please. Feel free to spend half of it on your living expenses. Spend it on yourself, but put the other half aside for various purposes. Firstly, for building up savings so that you have a reserve. Keep saving until you have at least a 6 month reserve. But if you're clever, aim for a year's worth. You can't go wrong with that. Also, set some aside to invest, perhaps to start your own business. And set some aside to invest in yourself so that your knowledge grows. Absolutely, because no one can ever take that knowledge away from you. And also set some aside for your health, for exercise, for sport. These are the things that can buy you freedom. Just think about it. If you have all the money in the world, but you're bedridden because of your health, then that so called wealth is lost. It means nothing. If you manage these things well, even now, your finances, and you tell yourself, all right, I'll live off half of what I earn, but the other half I'll really put aside for things that will buy me my freedom, my health, and expand my knowledge, which will move me forward in the long run. That's brilliant. Really good. Of course, it might be that at the moment, half of what you earn, or maybe even all of it, is just enough to get you through the month, to make it to the end of the month. That's all right. Really think through your expenses. So, look, be honest with yourself and think about how many times you've gone out partying. How many times have you ordered food instead of making it yourself? How many times have you spent money in the shop on things you didn't really need, if you're honest? Honestly, tell me, how many times have you bought that Snickers, that Twix, or that sweet, or those crisps, which your body doesn't actually need anyway? I saved a lot when I didn't have any money, and I made a lot of vegetable and fruit based dishes, or I'd buy pasta, for example. Basically, these can be healthy meals. Well, I'm not just talking about pasta specifically, but the rest as well. And yet, they're much cheaper than, say, pizzas or various meat or animal based dishes. If you cook a vegetable soup, which you can have for lunch for 3 days, I don't think it costs more than 500 or 600 forints. Right, so there will be a video like this as well, if you want it, but I really don't want to go too far in this direction. Write down exactly what topics you'd like to hear more about. Obviously, the main focus would be on the stock market, so we'll be heading in that direction too. It's just that no one started from the same place. No one had it, so that background story. And just as we all differ individually to such an extent, some are luckier, some less so, everyone has their own background. Our life stories are probably all different as well. Everyone handled the tough times differently. Everyone dealt with the easy times in their own way, whether they had plenty or not. So, we are different. That's the point. Well, thank you for listening or watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, because that's the only way we can reach more people who are also interested in this topic. I'd love for us to bring these people together, to have a nice little team, a good little community, and if nothing else, at least we can help each other, because help each other. Bye from out.